My official prediction, Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. Guys, I'm taking Ortega. Time out. How the hell did we get here? How did we get here? Why are these two fighting? Now, Yair's come out and shared with us that it's number one contendership, of which I believe. And of which, if I had a magic wand and he won the fight, that's the match that I would make. I think they got a real four-way going on at the top. And Yair is the one missing piece as it relates to Volkanovski. So just hold that thought. Whether we get there or not, I'm not even picking him to win, but I certainly acknowledge he can. How'd we get here, guys? This card, I mean, this is a coveted card. I will tell you, if you were a fighter, if you were in the locker room, you would campaign to be on this. Now, for you to campaign to be on this, you'd have to pay attention to your sport. You'd have to see the calendar. You'd have to know this was coming up. You'd have to see that it doesn't have a main event. You'd have to recognize that you're going to be in front of more eyeballs than ever. That would have to matter to you. You would then have to find a way to monetize or use that platform. So basically what I just described represents a grand total of 0 fighters that are signed to the company. And I don't believe a single fighter did campaign to be in this spot. And I do not think that the fighters even understand themselves what it means to be on ABC. I don't. And I don't think these two tried to get to each other either. And I wish that they had. That would add something for me. And I do have to come back to, how did we get here? This is a great fight. I don't know that this is a huge fight. You'll have to tell me. Is this a huge fight that people are clamoring for? This was supposed to be from the one and only time that I have ever heard it discussed in the media. And it was offhanded. Dana White's doing Pat McAfee. It's leading into a pay-per-view that's 4 days away. That's Gilbert Burns versus Chimaev. And Dana White just drops in Pat's lap. Hey, I got this big card coming up on network television. Colby Covington's in the main event. I am going to find his opponent this weekend. Winner of Chimaev versus Burns. That always works, at least for me. I like that. This sport does not have a competitive architecture. And what I just stated for you is as close as we do in this sport, where somebody's in the finals and the other part of the bracket is getting figured out. Here's your semifinal, and here's where we're going to advance. I just like that. Not to mention, Colby Covington was the right guy. I love that call. That's the guy you can count on. That's the guy that's going to go out, do media, bring attention, do a great job in the main event. Putting him in there with Burns or Chimaev, man, I'm in. I'm in. But at the time that Dana made the comment, that was the first anybody had heard of it. That includes Colby. Point being, this was Dana's plan, but he did not have this done. Chimaev and Burns learned about it at the same time that Pat McAfee did. I share that with you because it ended up not happening, which just brings me back to, how did we get here? Why is Ortega and Rodriguez fighting? Now, guys, I do think there's a story. I just don't think it's been told. I sent a text message to Tiki. If he responds while I'm making this, to give you guys an update, Tiki is the manager of both Ortega and Rodriguez. So he's got his own 2 guys. Tiki did know what time it was. Tiki did know the advantages to ABC. He did lobby for it. He not only got 1 guy, he got 2. And I'm stunned that other people weren't fighting for it. I really am. It disappoints me. It disappoints me when guys don't know what's going on, when guys aren't paying attention, when guys aren't trying to strategically get themselves the greatest opportunities. Now, why is Ortega here? I mean, that's a fair question. And one thing that we're learning about Ortega, guys, is that we don't just know exactly how good he is, do we? There is a clear distinction between Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and the field. There is a clear, those two, and then the field. Well, not so fast. I mean, Ortega's been in there with both of them. Ortega, without question, gave Volkanovski his hardest fight. Volkanovski will happily admit that. Ortega learned a lot in the fight with Max Holloway. He was not quite ready for it. That's true. But it was still valid, and I only bring that to you because, yes, you have seen Ortega get his ass kicked. How good is he? Is he the 3rd best guy? He might be. You look at what Ortega did in his fight with Zombie just by example. We didn't know he was that good, did we? I mean, that was a whole nother guy. There was a whole nother guy with a whole nother drive. And guys, anything in life, what goes up must come down. And when you see these younger guys get an opportunity, like Ortega did, to fight for a world championship, in his case, too, everything goes down. Whatever you're going to do next, how are you going to find the motivation? Where are you going to get that from? Now, that's a mental battle, not a physical, but you still are being tested. Ortega went out flying colors. And I do think this is a problem. We don't exactly know how good he is. He would appear to be the third best guy in the world. That is a remarkable achievement. I'm not certain that you're fully aware of that. Now, he wants to get back to number one. I think he's going to have a hard time. I think that it is true that Rodriguez was told, if you win this, you get. But it still brings a question of why is Brian here? He was just asked to do it. He was training. He was looking for a fight. I don't know. I'd like to know that part of the story. Frankly, I think I'm owed it. I believe I am owed this part of the story. What does this mean and what is this about? Rodriguez has told us that. Now, one reason that I went to Tiki and I told you guys, if he responds, I'll get back to you. Tiki is not just a manager. Tiki's a trainer. Tiki brings these guys in. He gets them ready for fights. I'd like to know what the room looked like. Have Ortega and Rodriguez train together? I would guess, and I would even bet for you guys, the answer to that is yes, but we haven't been given that information, and I think we should, and I think that we're owed it. I think that's compelling, and if they did, how long ago was it? Because one thing that we did not get with this fight, right? We didn't get a push and pull. We didn't get a back and forth. Dana, that we know of, was not given resistance, and that's interesting to me. When two guys sparred and trained and shared a room together multiple times, and both guys accept the fight right away thinking it's a good fight for them, that's interesting to me. Because both things can't be true. And they are very, very different guys. I mean, Ortega on the ground with his ground skills is not overly comparable with Rodriguez. Rodriguez's stand-up fight, guy's a video game. One of the first times I saw Rodriguez, I think it was his third fight, was one of the first that I saw him. I'm going back many years. This would be around 2015, 2016, right in this ballpark, and I'm with Gilbert Melendez. Now, Gilbert Melendez, one of the greatest fighters this sport has ever seen, was on top of the world. Then, he was ranked number 1 or 2. He still had championship opportunities in front of him. And I bring that to you because Gilbert is watching Rodriguez, who is in the division, is somebody where Gilbert could cross paths with him. And Gilbert was extremely complimentary. I mean, what is this guy doing? I watch fights with Gilbert all the time. And we're fans. You know, you see that side of it. Not to this extent. This was different. When Gilbert was commented on Rodriguez, who was a potential future opponent, it was different. Gilbert was breaking it down just slightly for me. This was a real quick conversation, but I remember it all these years later. And I remember what a compliment it was to Rodriguez, who was a young guy at that day. He was 21, he was 22. People weren't familiar with him yet. Rodriguez is a video game. I used to have to say that about one guy and one guy only, which was Demetrius Johnson. But Demetrius would do techniques that you could only do through animation. I had only seen them before in scripted, edited animation. True video game. And then Rodriguez came along. Now I can say this about two guys. Joe Rogan has called Rodriguez fights before, and I've seen Joe get tongue-tied because he couldn't tell the audience what the move was called. Couldn't tell the audience what the move was called because we'd never seen it. It didn't even have a name. And Rodriguez did like 5 of these all in one night. Very interesting guy. But that does come back to the sparring. That's extremely relevant. In sparring, you bring the striking down, right? Taking care of your partner. You bring the striking down. The grappling's at 100%. So if these two went and sparred and Ortega's going, yeah, I can handle this guy, did many times, it's a little bit of a false premise because he's going 100% at what he's good at and Rodriguez is pulling back. Now, why would Rodriguez think the fight? Why would he have the same memory of the workouts with Ortega and think, hell yeah, I'll fight that guy? Well, because he knew he was holding back. And that's interesting to me. I saw that play out firsthand. Randy Couture retired, came back to the sport in a heavyweight division for a championship against the giant Tim Sylvia. Now, I was in the room when those guys used to spar. And Randy beat Tim every single day. But Tim was also being nice. And when Tim had to accept this fight, he was being challenged. He was the champion. He had no choice to be there. Randy chose to be there. And Tim came out and he just said, yes, Randy used to handle me in the room. Was being nice. I was staying at his house. It was his gym. He's a 205-pounder. The heavyweight champion. I didn't want to hurt him. Well, Tim was telling the truth. That wasn't for hype. That wasn't for promotion. I watched it. That is what happened. Now, that also doesn't just mean you can flip the script. You're going to go out and win the contest, and that one played out the way that did. But I will only share with you, I think we, the audience, should be... I don't know how we got here, guys. I'm happy we're here. Rodriguez Ortega. I believe Rodriguez that if he wins, he will be the number one contender. I believe that he was told that. But Brian's not going to just come to the table. He's just not. This is a top guy. This is a main event guy. This is a big spot. This is a hard fight. What's in it for me? I don't have the answers to that. Something makes Ortega tick. And I could live with anything, including me being completely wrong and there was no cherry put on this Sunday. Just a straight up competition. He liked the matchup. I'm in, but I haven't been told that, and I'm owed it. So I'm trying to get you guys the scoop, right? We're running out of time here. I'm going to Tiki. I'm trying to get you guys some scoop. Did these guys used to train? Was there heat? Was there a problem? How did this fight come together? Did it put Tiki in a weird spot? I don't know these answers. Tiki corners both guys. Tiki's got to be sitting this one out. The mere element of how Tiki fits into the story is great promotion. And we haven't been told it, but we're owed it, and I'm going to get it for you.